It all started 15 years before the current events of the anime, when this scientist, Professor Hudson, was working on the Kensington experiment, an experiment that worked with the PSI of children, that is, their psychological power. Almost all kids possess it, but it's not as strong as psychic power. Rather, it's just for intuition and has only enough physical force to bend a coin. In a lab, they had rows of children strapped in place with a strange object over each child's head. These are called autoreceptors, and they amplify and collect the power of the children's PSI abilities. The collective system that is formed is called the kids system. The goal of this experiment was to see what would happen if the forces of many children were accumulated. Nevertheless, the experiment was flawed as the consciousness of many of these kids never returned to their bodies. After this disastrous result, Hudson deleted all the data from the experiment, but someone somehow got their hands on it. It was Masami 80, a worker at the Tachibana lab. He believed that the only way for humans to evolve further was to shed their physical limitations and live as virtual entities on the net. How did he plan to do that? Well, it is believed that the Earth might awaken its consciousness now that the human population is reaching the same number as the number of neurons in the human brain. Moreover, the network has spread so quickly that it has become something like a neural network in the brain. However, for the consciousness of the Earth to awaken, it is necessary for all humans to be connected to each other. This would be possible if the consciousness of all humanity were connected to a wireless network, without devices, by means of the Schumann resonance, which is the name given to the particular electromagnetic waves the Earth has. In this way, the Earth would become like a giant brain in which there would be no individual thought, but a collective mind. Masami called this project Protocol 7, because the current internet protocol was Protocol 6, and he would upgrade it. He was working on it with Iwakura Yasuo, a colleague from the Tachibana lab. Of course, he was hiding all this from the company. Later, for whatever reason, he needed someone to be the container for Protocol 7, so by unknown means he created a human, Lain. Unfortunately for him, his company discovered everything and he was fired. Shortly after, he was found dead. As for his research partner, he was not fired and he adopted Lain as his daughter. Lain was reprogrammed and deprived of the knowledge of what she really was. And it is from here that we can start with the events of the anime.
Present day. Present time.
The anime begins with a girl on the edge of the roof of a building. We see a floating text that reads, "I don't need to be here," and then she jumps off the building. Later we meet Lain, our main character. She's a 14-year-old middle school girl. In her classroom we see a girl crying because she has received an email from Chisa, the girl who offed herself at the beginning. Many other classmates have also received an email from her. This girl named Alice asks Lain if she also received one. Lain replies that she hasn't checked. Back at home, Lain logs onto her computer and is informed that she has mail. It is indeed from Chisa. The email says that she only gave up her body, but that she's actually still alive inside the wired, the internet, and that God is also there. After receiving this email, Lain becomes interested in computers and asks her father for a new Navi. Her dad is amused that she's finally interested in it, but asks her why she's suddenly interested, to which he replies, "I have to meet a friend." Later, Lain is on the train when it suddenly stops. At that moment, Lain begins to have really disturbing hallucinations. She sees a blood-like liquid dripping from a wire. She's then transported to various locations until she ends up at a railroad crossing. As she stares at the railroad tracks, she sees a girl standing on them. The girl's face alternately smiles and screams, and she ends up smiling in satisfaction as the train swoops down on her. Suddenly, we are transported to Lain's classroom. The girl is slumped over as tears fall silently down her face. That's when she sees yet another hallucination, as the English words on the blackboard begin to blur until she sees a message reading, "Come on the wired quickly." From here on, Lain experiences many more hallucinations, but most of them don't add anything to the plot, so I won't mention them. In fact, I'm convinced that they are there just to mess with your mind, which means it's better to see them for yourself to enjoy the experience. Then we are in a dance club called Siberia. Here a boy buys a drug called Axela. When this drug enters the body, it helps the organism secrete a specific hormone. When this hormone is secreted, the person's sense of time will be altered. They will feel that their consciousness has been accelerated, and their brain's calculation speed will be 12 times faster. The effect lasts for a day, the time it takes for digestive juices to dissolve this nano mechanism. Changing scenes, Lain runs into three friends at school. As they walk together, they explain to Lain that last night there was someone who looked like her in Siberia, but her personality was completely different. They then invite Lain to go to Siberia with them, saying it'll be fun. On her way home, Lain sees a delivery truck in front of her house. They've come to deliver the latest Navi model she asked her father for. At night, her father sets up the computer and invites Lain to log onto the machine. She takes down the hood of her bear suit and does so. Lain checks her email on the new system, but there is none. That's when she gets a message from Alice telling her they're waiting for her to go to the club. Later, we're inside the club and Lain meets up with her friends. Upon seeing her friends agree that the girl they saw was definitely not her, because she was wearing totally different clothes and speaking sharply, something Lain doesn't do. Later, people start to scatter as gunshots are heard. The boy who took the Xela drug the night before is holding the gun. Lain's friends run away, but when Alice realizes Lain is standing there motionless, she goes back to get her. Upon seeing Lain, the boy with the gun steps back in shock and starts yelling that she made him do this. At first, Lain just stares at him, but later she starts to step away from Alice and walks towards the boy. The latter points the gun at her and the laser sight is locked nervously between Lain's eyes. Suddenly, Lain proclaims, "No matter where you are, we humans are all connected." This brings tears to the boy's eyes. He then points the gun at his mouth and shoots. The next day, Lain's friends talk about what happened the night before. Meanwhile, Lain opens her locker and sees a small envelope inside. When she opens it, out comes a small brown square. No one knows what it is, not even Lain. However, when Lain is walking home, she suddenly calls out the name of the device, Psyche. Next, we see Lain sitting in front of her Navi and we hear several conversations. One of them says that the device Psyche was designed by a group of hackers called the Knights. Afterwards, Lain heads alone to Siberia. There she finds 3 kids sitting at a table. She asks them if they know what the device in their hand is. They are all surprised and this boy named Taro tells her that with it she can access the wire perfectly even without a computer. Lain then asks how to use it and they explain it to her. She thanks them but Taro says that the information was not free. He says he saw her on the wire once, but she was quite different. He then asks her to go on a date with him, but says he'd rather go with the wild Lain he saw on the net. The next day, we see Lain's sister walking up the stairs and stopping at Lain's open door. She looks in and sees Lain sitting on the floor surrounded by pieces of her Navi, modifying it. Later, we once again see Lain's room. Her Navi is larger than ever, now encompassing several machines connected together with multiple monitors. Later, we are told that Lain learned of a rumor about a game called Phantoma. It is a game played by children, and all the children who have died recently were hooked on it. Lain decides to investigate more about this game, so she enters the wired and starts watching a boy who is playing the game and desperately running away from a short-haired little girl. Finally, the boy raises his hands as if he's holding a gun and fires the invisible weapon. After that, the virtual world fades away and we find ourselves on a rooftop. The boy is sitting against the fence, dazed and staring blankly. In front of him, wrapped in a sheet, lies a lifeless body. Lain, who watched the whole thing, is standing on the edge of the building, sadly contemplating the scene. Afterwards, she continues to investigate the game Phantoma and finds out that it was made by the Knights. Suddenly, the red dot of a laser passes over Lain's face. It is coming through the window, so Lain gets up to investigate it. She then sees 2 men outside a car looking up. This is when Lain uses her powers in the real world for the first time, as she shatters the headpiece of one of the men. They become frightened and run away in their car. We then see Lain's sister, Mika, making her way through a crowd. That's when a man comes up to her and hands her a pack of tissues. Soon after, a boy talks to her. It's Taro, who's casually taking a sip from his soda can. He asks, "Would you like to go on a date with me?" In response, Mika turns, offended, and tries to walk past him, but she bumps into him and she spills soda on her uniform jacket. After that, Taro just leaves. Meanwhile, to avoid getting stained, she's about to use the tissue she was given to wipe her jacket. It is then that she notices there is something written on the tissue. Scrawled in red characters is a message that reads, "Hell is full of the dead and the dead will wander." After reading the message, she throws the tissue to the ground. Later, Mika is in a fast food restaurant. She spills her coffee on the table and the liquid begins to move and form a message. Execute the prophecy. Shocked, Mika stands up and asks, "What prophecy?" The restaurant is deserted and silent. Mika runs to the restaurant's restroom and when the door closes behind her, she can see the message, "Execute the prophecy," scrawled all over the door in red letters. She's terrified by this. Later, she runs through the front door of her house, and there she sees another Mika, and then the Mika we were following disappears. This experience traumatizes Mika so much she can't even speak anymore. Moving on, we see Lain is on her way to school when she sees a boy looking up at the sky with his arms raised in a V shape. Lain follows his gaze upward but sees nothing. Later, we see Lain and her friends strolling through the stores in town. At that moment, 2 children catch Lain's attention. They are both staring up at the sky and raising their arms upward. Lain also looks up at the sky and she sees how the clouds begin to pour down the middle, revealing a huge image of herself. She's stunned and confused by this incident, so when she gets home, she goes on the net to research about children's games, specifically about Phantoma. It is then when she finds out about Professor Hodgson's experiment, the one I talked about at the beginning. She looks for him and eventually finds him. When she does, she asks him about kids. He tells her all about it and says he thought he had deleted all the data from the experiment, but someone got hold of it. This person or persons then updated the experiment experiment to work without that helmet the kids had to wear before, and that's what the game Phantoma is. The scene shifts to Lain looking up at the ceiling of a room. That's when she again sees two red laser lights on the ceiling. This time Lain comes out of the house to confront the men. She thinks they are with the Knights, and just as she's asking them about it, an explosion rips through Lain's room. She asks what happened, and the men explain that the Knights sent a parasite bomb to her cooling system. After saying that, they get in the car and drive off. Afterward, Lain is on her way home from school when she sees the men in black waiting for her. They invite her to come with them and she accepts. They go to the headquarters of Tachibana Lab, and there she meets the head of that company. He starts talking to her about the Knights. He says they want to use her for something and that they have to stop them. Then he begins to question her, asking her if her relatives are really her relatives. He bombards her with so many questions that she starts freaking out. But then, her personality suddenly changes and she arrogantly tells him that he's asking her trivial questions. The three men are surprised by her change of attitude, but Lain just leaves the building. What just happened here? Turns out Lain has two personalities, her original extroverted personality from before her memories were erased, and the introverted personality we already know about. Next, when Lain is at school, Alice and the others start questioning her, accusing her of spreading rumors about Alice. But Alice ultimately concludes that Lain wasn't the one who did it. Later, we can see Alice fantasizing about her teacher while touching herself. However, she's brought back to reality when she sees Lain watching her, laughing evilly. This was the rumor that Alice and the others were asking Lain about. At that moment, our Lain confronts for the first time this other Lain, who is not her other personality, which we talked about earlier. Rather, she's an evil Lain created by the Knights. After that, Lain goes to Siberia and there the DJ hands her a microchip. She later finds Taro and takes him to her house to talk with him. She asks him if he's a member of the Knights. Taro replies that he's too young to be an official member. He also tells her that the chip she received is able to rewrite memories that already exist. When Taro leaves, she uses the chip and that's when she regains all the memories that were erased from her the day she met her family. Later on, Lain is outside when she finally comes face to face with Masami-80, the self-proclaimed god of the Wired. We find out that the reason why he thinks he's a god is that he has believers, the Knights. Masami also tries to convince Lain to go with him, telling her that she doesn't need her body, but she refuses. Sometime later, her dad tells her that it's time to say goodbye, cause his job is over. After hearing that, kinda like a revenge to the god of the Wired, Lain decides to reveal the identities of the believers of this god, that is, the Knights. As a result, many of the Knights are killed by the men in black and others off themselves. Afterwards, the men in black visit Lain to thank her for revealing the identities of the Knights. They reveal to her that their goal is to get rid of everything related to Masami-80 and rewrite the entire Protocol 7. Sometime later, Lain meets Masami again. She tells him he has no believers left, but he replies there's one left, her. He then tries again to convince her to come to the Wired, telling her about her origin and that he created her. She gets angry by all this and expels some of her power, causing Masami to flee. Afterwards, we see Alice using her Navi in her room when she's interrupted by Lain. Lain tells her that there are many Lains and that one of those Lains spread the rumors about her. But she tells her not to worry, because now she has a lot of power and can make anything that has already happened never have happened. And that's just what she'll do with the rumors about her. The next day, when Alice is at school, she realizes that, indeed, no one knows anything about the rumors, proving that what Lain told her was true. Later, we learn that the men in black have been betrayed by their boss. The latter reveals to them that he's on Masami's side, and immediately afterwards, they are killed by the evil Lain. At dusk, Alice goes to Lain's house. When she finds her, she asks her why she left her memories about the rumors. Lain tells her that it's because she loves her. She also tells her that she's a software designed to break the barrier between the real world and the Wired, and she ends her explanation by saying that everyone is just an app that doesn't need its body. In response to that statement, Alice grabs Lain's hand and places it on her chest. She tells her that life does exist and that they're both alive. Her heartbeat is proof of that. This makes Lain's face light up again and she starts laughing. At that moment, Masami appears behind Lain and tells her that if she loves Alice so much, why doesn't she take her to the net with her? Lain decides to confront him and tells him that he can't call himself a god as he doesn't have a body, and therefore he can do anything in the real world. Masami feels challenged by these words and begins to materialize a body using the electronics Lain has in her room. He transforms into a hideous flesh being and attacks the girls. It is then that Lain uses her powers and crushes him with her Navi equipment, killing him. His reign as a god is over. Alice is traumatized by these events. Lain realizes that no matter what she does, she ends up hurting Alice. She realizes that all the tragedies that have befallen many people are due to her existence, so she makes a drastic decision. She resets the world and erases her existence. In this new reality, Lain's family is a normal family of 3 members. Jesus is still alive, Alice and her friends lead a normal teenage life, the Axela boy is alive, Taro and his group play together as normal children, Masami is also alive and is thinking of quitting his job. The men in black are alive too, and they are now construction workers. Many years have passed. We see Alice and her boyfriend walking down the street together. Lain is on a catwalk watching them. Alice notices her and approaches her because she thinks she's seen her before and tells her so, but Lain denies it. Finally, Alice says goodbye and tells her that maybe they will see each other again someday. Lain continues to watch them as they walk away and then says, "Yes, I can see you anytime."
I promise you I'll always be right here. I'm right next to you. Forever.